Morning and welcome. I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and I'm grateful to see so many of your beautiful faces as we have the sad honor and opportunity today to say goodbye to Bonnie Shore, who absolutely took up an incredible space in this world and who made a really significant difference in the lives of so many. And and today we get to remember her. We get to lift up her contributions. We get to help her family say goodbye to her, which is a hard job. And so I'm glad that there are many of you here to participate in that. For those of you for whom this is a first Jewish funeral, just so you know, there's really three things that we do at a Jewish memorial. The first thing that we do is prepare ourselves for the hard work of saying goodbye. We do that through the Psalms and the songs and liturgy of our tradition. The second thing that we do is to tell the story of Bonnie's life, to begin to lift up the pieces of her memory that are most important to us and that we need so desperately to keep with us. And then the third thing that we do, which we'll do between here and the cemetery, is to say goodbye to her physical presence here with us, knowing that we don't have to say goodbye to her memory or to her legacy, but to her physical experience with us here. And so we begin with a poem. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. I want to share with you a poem that was written by Ehud Manor, an Israeli poet. It's called Like a Prayer. Every word whispered and sung, every word shattered in a storm is a prayer. Every word that the heart cries and sighs to a distant home or forgotten dream in any language is a prayer. Maybe God above doesn't hear at all what our mouths utter, but prayer to God changes the prayer. It's a prayer that extends all the way. It's a prayer that speaks and does. It's a prayer I say to myself for my well-being and for my loved ones. I will carry it to journey's end. There is a prayer that opens the morning. There is a prayer that closes the day, a prayer for light, for warmth, and peace. And as I got to hear more and more about Bonnie and her beautiful life and her relationship to her family and to her community, and certainly to Jewish community, it's clear to me that Jewish community was important to her. I know that her parents were really fundamental and instrumental in the life of Temple Emmanuel. And as she raised her children at Temple and then got older, we go back and forth in the way that we sort of interact with all of the different communities and identities that we're a part of. And yet it was so clear to me from the words of Mark and Stephanie in particular that it mattered to her. Prayer, identity, community, and connection are not always something we find in straightforward ways, but they are the pieces of us that are so deep. They are ingrained in us and who we are and how we see the world. And so we hope that all of the prayers that Bonnie had in her life and all of the prayers that we now share in her absence, they're not so much for God as much as they are for us. We hope that they change us, that her memory changes us with prayers of honor and blessing for who she was. As I got to hear about her in lots of different memories from Steph and Mark, one thing in particular kept coming up over and over, and that is really Bonnie's strength, the strength of character and the strength of, I think, love and relationship that lived so deeply inside her. And it wasn't always strength that came out forcefully or strength that came out in strong words or in strong stances. Sometimes it did. But in other times, it was an underlying current of strength that may have actually come out in quiet or in peacefulness or in a choice to let things lie or let things go. And I loved that idea that that was so much of who she was a current of underlying strength. I'm going to share with you in a moment the words of one of our most important Psalms that we say when we mourn, Psalm 23. We probably all know the words to the most famous line, "When I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me." And that line, "Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death," is one of those lines that really lives inside us and changes the way that we see the world. Sometimes we understand that line, that verse, to mean that it is our loved one that we have lost that has gone to a different place and we miss them. Sometimes we understand that we who mourn are the ones that walk in that valley. Valleys are low, shadows are dark. It feels low and dark this week as we walk in that valley without Bonnie here. And yet, it is strength, strength of character, strength of commitment, strength of relationship, and strength of love that always reminds us that we walk through. And Steph and Mark in particular, I know that this has been a many years and months and weeks of walking through a moment that has felt low as you have helped your mom arrive at this moment. But you walk through this valley knowing that it is her light and her strength that taught you how to do that. And even if you can't feel that the way that you normally have, that her light feels shadowed, that you will find her and all of her brilliant, beautiful, strong light at the other side of that valley. And we do come out. I'll share with you the words of this psalm. Adonai ro'i lo echsar bino deshe yarbitzeni amei menuchot yenahaleini nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begates hamavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai, shulchan neged zorarai. Dishanta Bashem and Roshi Kosi Revaya Ach Tov Chesed Yerdifuni Kol Yemei Chayai Kol Yemei Chayai V'shavti B'veit Adonai Le'orech Yamim Adonai Ro'i Lo Echzar Adonai Ro'i Lo Echzar. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. God, you lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And with that, we are going to turn to the next part of our service, the part where we get to start lifting up all of those memories of Bonnie. There's a number of people that are going to help us to do this, who are going to help us to think about the important parts of who she was and continues to be in our lives. And so I'm going to invite Mason up to share with us some words.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mason George, and I'm one of Bonnie's grandchildren, or as we called her, Grammy. I remember that we used to go over to Grammy's house for family gatherings and have a great time catching up with family we hadn't seen in a while. Grammy always made everyone feel welcome in her house, and it felt like everyone was able to take a break from life and just be present with her. One thing I remember most about visiting Grammy's house was looking through the picture books she kept of all her grandchildren. The pages were filled with joyful memories, reminding us of all the fun times we have had. And every time we would go back to Grammy's house, we would have a new book filled with new memories that we had made together. I'm going to miss looking through those pictures on Grammy's floor. But most of all, I'm going to miss that we aren't going to be able to make any new memories to put in those books. I know that Grammy is smiling down on all of us, not wanting us to dwell on her absence, but to remember the great times we had when she was with us and the many memories that we made with her. We love you, Grammy. Thank you.
Can I invite up Richard?
Well, greetings. I'm Richard, Bonnie's brother, and a warm welcome to all of you, family and friends, to Stephanie, Chris, Mason, Isla, Mark, Kate, Abby, Henry, Sibs, Lucky, Linda, Philip, Howard, and to all extended family and all friends gathered here today. Today we are gathered to honor Bonnie. But before I get to my prepared remarks, I would like to note that many of us present today share in the loss this past year of our beloved matriarch, Judy Rosoff Shore, Lucky's wife, and much loved mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. We all miss her. And further, just in case some of my comments sound familiar, I would like to explain that the Feldman Mortuary had a spy looking over my shoulder last Thursday and Friday as I wrote down my ideas about what to say. When I began to think about how to speak about Bonnie, I was mixed in my own mind about whether to use the past or present tense. Of course, both are appropriate, as the feelings today surely is that she is past and she is present. In fact, this day, October 8, is also Bonnie's 80th birthday. For starters, I'm sure that everyone here present today is holding certain images of Bonnie. She is quiet, she is beautiful, warm, smiling. She's loving, thoughtful, courageous, and her own person. And we all share a sense of loss as we mark the passing of a mother, sister, grandmother, and dear friend. We will all miss her. Now then, to a few particulars, which can be a bit tricky at my age, as memory at this point is somewhat a bit sketchy. Important also is that I'm 8 years older than Bonnie. That gap of years means that as Bonnie was emerging into school and teenage years, college and so forth, I was not at home and not in Denver. There are a few hallmarks that I would like to highlight. For one thing, when Bonnie was young, very young, and about this I do have distinct memories, she was shy. I have clear memories of Bonnie about age 2 or 3 being very reticent and quiet. In the house that we lived in, 401 Eudora, there was a living room that contained a piano for that totally failed effort to get me to be a pianist. And there was a large, dark furniture piece that contained that remarkable new thing, a small screen black and white television, and one large overstuffed chair in which our father, I.J., would sit and read newspapers and watch the fights. My memory of Bonnie is that she stood quietly behind the large chair, not unhappy, but calm. As you all know, a bit of that shyness, that reticence continued throughout her life. But Bonnie certainly did emerge from behind that chair, and here are a few noteworthy examples. Bonnie emerged quietly and successfully through the school system, Temple, college, and so on. She was the only one of us that graduated Thomas Jefferson High School. The rest of us, including our mother, Gertrude, were graduates of East Denver Public High School. Bonnie attended Pine Manor Junior College and then Boulder, and with her quiet and yet skilled style, she earned a master's degree in speech pathology and speech therapy. Bonnie moved into the world with inner energy. She and Sister Linda did not get the push that the older two of us boys got, which was typical of that era, but also particular to our upbringing. Bonnie also developed major, long-lasting, close relationships with many friends in Denver. Another way that I remember the particulars is to recall the house and then the condominium that Bonnie lived in. I have memories of the neighborhood, but not the address of the house Bonnie lived in, there with Howard raising 2 kids, Stephanie, and Mark. The house was rich with loving family vibes, and it was a house that Diana and I looked forward to visiting with our similarly aged kids, Stephen and Elena. And I have distinct memories of watching the four kids playing in the basement and running throughout that house and garden. Later, Bonnie moved into the condo along the walking and biking path, Cherry Creek South Drive. This condo offers other glimpses into Bonnie's interests and activities. It was there that she lived for some years with Mike, who was helpful in keeping her active and as mobile as possible. It was in this house that her interest in art showed. There was above the fireplace a rather large painting that always reminded me of good cheer, bright, colorful, sparkly, with clusters of expanding joy. This clearly reflected aspects of Bonnie's personality: upbeat, optimistic, and always loving. On another wall was a painting by Gorman, a good example of Gorman's style, a minimalist outline of a woman, likely a Native American, but certainly a woman condensed to essentials: honored, respected, beautiful. This is Bonnie. I mentioned the two art pieces in Bonnie's home also, as this illustrates one of her major adult interests. She worked in a respected art gallery for many years and later became a docent at the Denver Art Museum. Back to the condo, and other aspect of her condominium which reflected a totally different component of her life was the upstairs office. This was a room full of speech tests, speech diagnostic books, and work-related materials. This was another real and important part of Bonnie's life. And this is the room where Diana and I stayed when we came to Denver to visit Bonnie. Additionally, as I witnessed the adult years, I saw that she always made time to get together with family and her close friends. Bonnie was much compromised by her emerging Parkinson's. This increasingly limited her mobility and her activities, but nothing ever limited her love of her two children, Stephanie and Mark, and her four grandchildren, all of whom are here today. In fact, just a couple weeks before Bonnie's marked decline, Diana and I visited with her, and she was still at that time communicative, although not very mobile. And what the main conversation was about was Bonnie giving us a detailed and complete summary about each grandchild, about Mason and sports management, about Iowa and swimming long distances, about Abby and the joys of Santa Clara, about Henry, so tall. In so many ways, I think it's accurate to say that Bonnie is here with all of us. We can each feel her kindness. We each can feel her deep, loving feelings. We can celebrate that she lived in a gentle, concerned, loving manner with focus on her family and her many friends. She lives to be remembered by each and every one of us as we commit to our memories all the kindnesses and loving elements that are the essence that is Bonnie. We wish her well on her journey. We send her along with all our love.
Good catch. I'm gonna ask Mark to come share with us.
Uncle Richard, that was wonderful. Thank you. And Mason, that was amazing. Oh, wow. And I'm going to try to get through this. Okay. So I've written a few words and going to probably look down a little bit because it's tough to see everybody because it just makes me want to cry. This is just so wonderful that you're all here. Thank you. This is a beautiful tribute to my mom. Grateful to be standing here and to have this opportunity to talk about mom. I'm going to share some remarkable qualities that I saw in my mom, and then I'm going to tell you a short story that I think truly captures all of her greatness. And so I'm going to brag about her. And I think that's as a way to honor her. But, you know, she would be embarrassed, but she would also have that amazing smile too. So I guess we'll get going. My mom had this extraordinary ability to be exactly what someone needed, exactly when they needed it. She had a quiet strength, which we've mentioned already, so I'll X that part of my speech out. The kind that you might not notice at first, but you absolutely felt when it mattered. She had a subtle sense of humor that could sneak up on you, and a kindness that never wavered, even when everything else did. She also had a gift that sadly is rare today. She listened. She really listened. And she wasn't judgmental when she listened. I mean, that's like amazing in today's world, right? You need more of that. She didn't rush to give advice or tell you what you should do. She made you feel heard. And when you talked with my mom, you knew that she was really taking in every word, holding space for whatever you needed to say. Yeah, I love that about her. That quality, that ability to listen without judgment, make people feel truly seen, that was part of what made her so special. This is the strength part. I'll skip through a lot of it because you've already heard, but it was just so steady, reliable. She fought so hard for her kids. You know, when Steph and I were growing up, she was not silent when it came to our health. And that fierce, that protectiveness, that really helped me and Stephanie in countless ways. And I'll tell you what, Stephanie really got that gene too, because when I watched this as mom was having her health problems, took no prisoners. And I'll tell you what, that little gift that mom gave Stephanie helped our family so much. And amazing Mason up here speaking today, you know, she touched our lives in ways that fly under the radar. But that was one of them. And my mom's strength showed very powerfully as she fought hard through Parkinson's, and Lewy body dementia, which was also her diagnosis. And man, what a tough disease. It's unforgiving and cruel. And she did the best she could under impossible circumstances. And throughout it all, through everything that disease took from her, she kept her sense of humor and her kindness. And her kindness never wavered, not once. And not even when things got difficult. And you know how I know this is because when I would be with her and the caregivers were helping her, and they would just always pull me aside. Your mom is amazing. She's so special. She's so kind. She's so funny. She works so hard. And I was like, yeah, I know. And in fact, when she passed and Steph and I were with her, I felt like I needed to give comfort to the caregivers. They were so sad. And I think that is a real tribute to my mom. She meant a lot to everybody. It tells you everything you need to know. She had a subtle sense of humor too, and the kind that could catch you off guard and make you smile when you least expected it. An example is through this process, and when my amazing friends reached out and they told me funny stories about my mom, and they reminded me of a few times in high school when she would make fun of me in front of them, and it was just so funny. Like the jokes that she said were just funny, and the timing was perfect, and they were kind of crass too. And I loved hearing those stories, and I loved hearing those stories now. At the time, I probably did not like that. So I'm just going to tell you a quick story just to hammer home what a gem my mom was. When I was 24, 25, I lost one of my best friends, JJ. And I was really struggling with it. My mom saw me, she really saw me, and she listened, and she gave me something that I didn't think I needed. It was a set of grief stones. These were the Black River rocks, and with it, a note about healing and strength and gratefulness. And at the time, I'm 24, I didn't really understand it. And I said, thanks, Mom. Thanks for the rocks. Appreciate it. Great. Thanks for the rocks. And she laughed, because she just laughed and smiled and said, okay, smart guy, you wait. And I kept them. And guess what? It helped so much, because they were just these smooth stones. And they were just comforting. And somehow, some way, when I held those stones, I just felt better. And excuse me, I just need a little Kleenex here. And over the years, excuse me, not sure when it happened or how it happened, but I just kind of started to gather stones. And so around my house, and Kate can attest to this, there are these just random rocks and stones, and not like in a jar displayed, but like in my office drawer, and in my work bag, and in my car, in my nightstand, and even in that junk drawer where you put the batteries and the rubber bands, like there are these stones everywhere. And I seem to find them, or better yet, they find me when I'm stressed, when I have a big presentation at work, or a difficult conversation, or when I'm going through my own health issues. Sometimes just holding those stones seem to kind of make it all better. And it took me until now to understand why that is. And it's going to sound weird, but these stones, they're stable, they're supportive, they're consistent, and they're soothing. And guess what? They don't judge. And you know what? That was my mom. And so when she handed me those stones 26 years ago, wow, she was teaching me something that I'm only now starting to really figure out. She's shown me that sometimes the most powerful thing that you can offer someone isn't advice or solutions. Sometimes it's just being there, solid, steady, and constant. That's what my mom was for so many people. That person who listened without judgment, who showed up with quiet strength and kindness, who made you feel like you could get through whatever you were facing just because she was there. I'm so glad that I have all these stones around now. And it's a way of keeping her close, of remembering what she taught me and how I should show up. And so, Mom, thank you for being my rock, for showing us all what unconditional support looks like. I love you.
Thank you, Mark and Richard and Mason, for your beautiful, beautiful words, and for lifting up so much of who Bonnie was and is, past and present. That's part of what we do today, is we help to make the transition between what was and what is and what will be. And it is not an easy transition to make. There's a poem by Maya Angelou. It says, when great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in the tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light and rare and sterile, and we breathe but briefly, and our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines and gnaws on kind words unsaid or promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent on their nurture, now shrink. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of a dark, cold cave. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. And we know that that is much of today, that this enormous, beautiful tree has fallen. The shock is still reverberating. It will take a long time for hearts to settle and for breathing to return to normal and for that tree to just become a part of the forest. But the other thing that we know about what happens then is what grows there. When that tree becomes a part of the forest around it, it becomes its own habitat for all kinds of incredible things that grow in Bonnie's community, in her friends, in her family, and her siblings, in her children, and in her grandchildren. You are already growing. I think the beautiful, beautiful products of what she taught you, and may you continue to grow from her memory. We rise as we are able for our memorial prayer. El male rachamim shochen bamromim hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina im kadoshim utehorim kazohar harakia mazhirim et nishmat yakirenu shahalacha leolama bala rachamim yastireha Veseter knafav leolamim, veitzror bitzor chaim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Bonnie close to you forever so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. In just a moment, I'll turn it over to Jim to give us instructions about what happens next. I want to let everybody know that after burial today, the family will be sitting Shiva from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Even if there is a break in between burial and 2 p.m., Shiva will start at 2 p.m. That will be at Mark's home, 3166 South Steel Street. And we will have a minyan at 5, gathering at 5, and then Shiva will conclude immediately following our service at 5 p.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our service here at Feldman Mortuary. We will have interment at Emmanuel Cemetery, which is within Fairmount. We do have an escorted procession today, so if you'd like to join us at the interment and in our procession, we'll ask you to return to your cars as quickly as possible and have your headlights on. That will help identify you as a participant in that procession. We're going to use the far left lane heading southbound on York Street. Those who are not going to the cemetery or do not wish to participate in the procession will ask you to also return to your cars as quickly as possible and leave, because you might notice you're blocking the way you're parked. You might be blocking somebody in, but you can use the right lane or the west lane southbound on York Street. The last request we have, though, please refrain from coming forward and trying to speak with the family. It will delay their process and get into the cemetery. And we'll ask everyone to go ahead and return to your